time, in a peaceful village, lived a girl called Machi, who lived with her father in the village. She was the most attractive and prettiest girl in the village, which made her to be so pompous and selective. She had rejected so many suitors that came to ask for her hand in marriage because she was so full of herself, which made her believe that she was so pretty for those poor and ugly men. She would always boast to other maidens that she would only get married to the most handsome and wealthy man. Her father tried all he could to talk sense into her, and she should pick one man from the suitors and settle down before it would be too late for her. But she paid deaf ears to her father's advice. She paraded herself round the village like a queen, feeling so proud and pompous, like she owned the entire community, telling everyone that she wouldn't settle for less and ugly. This continued for months till one fateful day. She was on her way to the village stream with her friends when they came across a young handsome man called Zuba. With the way he was dressed and looked, one can tell from afar how wealthy he was. On sighting him, Machi fell in love at once. When they walked closer to him, they exchanged pleasantries and continued their way to the stream. On their way going, she kept telling her friends how handsome and rich he looked. She could not control her feelings, and that made it very obvious that she loved him. She also told them that she would do anything to win his heart and get married to him. They were all shocked and surprised. They tried to make it clear to her that he might not love her and that she should be very careful with her emotions. Machi and Zuba met on several occasions, and each time they meet, Machi would always throw herself on him. He noticed how desperate she was for him, and he decided to approach her and made his intentions known to her. Few days later, he proposed to her, and without hesitations, she accepted and agreed to marry him. He promised to see her father for them to fix the wedding date and start preparations for the marriage rites. Days later, he came as promised, and the wedding date was fixed, which would take place in 2 weeks' time. Before then, her father called her and warned her about her sudden decisions and told her to be very careful and have a rethink before getting married to Zuba in order to avoid mistakes. But she was so adamant and assured her father that Zuba was her dream man and that everything was fine. She was carried away by his handsome face and loaded pockets. Soon, the news of her getting married to Zuba spread round the village like a fresh aroma coming out from a bakery house. Everyone in the village was surprised, including her friends, and they were all anxious to know how she did it. Machi became more popular and proud of herself for charming Zuba with her beauty. She mocked at some of the maidens who married poor ugly men, making them feel jealous with regrets. 2 weeks later, the marriage rite was done, and Zuba told Machi's father that they would be leaving for his village the next morning. They left very early in the morning the next day. Before they left, her father told her about the strange feelings he had towards her husband. But she remained so adamant to listen to her father and told him not to worry about her. They walked for hours and days as they passed many other villages. Then Mmachi began to get worried and scared. She kept asking him how far and close his village was, and he kept assuring her that they would get there soon. After walking for another few days, they got to a very thick forest, and then he told her that the forest was his home. At first, she thought he was joking, but she got scared when she noticed that he was serious about it. The atmosphere began to change with a heavy breeze that came with it. Suddenly, he began to make some funny movements as he walked into the forest. To her greatest surprise and right in front of her eyes, he turned into a big snake. She was so frightened and began to cry and pleaded for her life. She pleaded so hard for mercy, but it was too late for her to amend her ways. The snake was about swallowing her when it got distracted by a hunter who saw all that happened in the forest. The snake tried to attack the hunter, and immediately he opened fire at it and began to shoot the snake. Luckily for him, he killed the snake after several shooting and brought Mmachi back to her village. She told her father all that happened and how the hunter saved her from the giant snake. She apologized to her father for not listening to him in the first place. She also promised him never to take his words and advice for granted. And since then, she began to treat everyone equally. She later got married to the hunter, and they lived happily ever after.